Greetings. Many thank yous to the organizing committee for allowing me this opportunity to share about Western red cedar as a cultural resource in urban environments. My name is Joey Hulbert, and I'm a postdoc at WSU based at the Puyallup Research and Extension Center. And today I'm really privileged to be joining you from my home in Tacoma on the traditional homelands of the Puyallup tribe of Indians. But generally, I'm really pleased and fortunate and grateful to be living and learning and discovering and studying and researching on the beautiful lands of the Coast Salish peoples in general. Today, I'm going to talk a little bit about red cedar as a cultural resource and where it is in the urban environment. I also want to share about why I've learned so much about Western red cedar and what I've learned from red cedar through some research about the dieback of red cedar. We know red cedar is a really important cultural resource. Just a quick look at the Washington State Historical Society archives lead us to some incredible photos of red cedar and its utility for transportation and housing and shelter and other amenities that are really common and integral parts of the indigenous cultures since time immemorial. Similarly, if we look at the BC archives from the Royal Museum, you can see the really neat demonstrations of how red cedar was integrated into communities in terms of these longhouses, as well as carvings and other usefulness, like creating canoes. Certainly we know that red cedar is an integral part of life, and it's often referred to as the tree of life for many communities. And we're really, really grateful to learn. And personally, I've just been really thrilled to learn some of the traditional uses and receive some traditional knowledge about why Western red cedar is so important to indigenous communities. We also know red cedar is really important to the ecology and the environments in the Northwest. For example, red cedar is really incredibly important for habitat, also for reducing stream temperatures, for salmon habitat, as well as habitat for other wildlife. However, unfortunately, we've seen a lot of dieback in Western red cedar recently, and this is throughout the Western range of red cedar, where it's very common to see top dieback, especially in the Puget Sound. And so this is certainly occurring in urban and natural areas, and it leads us to some interesting questions about the access to these resources or these unhealthy trees or to dying trees in these urban and natural areas. Do want to highlight, though, the reason I've learned so much about Western red cedar is through this project where we worked with state agencies and communities to understand where red cedar is healthy and unhealthy. And we use this iNaturalist platform to engage with more than 250 people to understand where trees are healthy and unhealthy. And this is generally just a Western science approach to understand what are the factors where trees are unhealthy and what are the factors where trees are healthy. And so we're exploring currently the climate and the site conditions and the soil characteristics associated with healthy and unhealthy trees. But through this research, we've really had incredible conversations about red cedar and our concerns with red cedar and climate change. And it's been tragic to learn some people are no longer interested in planting red cedar because of the dieback in the region. And the reason this is so concerning is because we know how important Western red cedar is, and we don't want to just give up on it yet. We want to keep working to understand why is it unhealthy and what can we do about it. So we've been encouraged to think of red cedar as the dieback of red cedar on the level of similarly to having a really sick relative or maybe even to having the language disappear. And so with those examples, really just barely start to understand how important Western red cedar is to our communities. And questions remain about the role of these trees and the existence of these trees in our increasingly urbanizing and changing environment. So for the sake of time, I have to rush through this little part about what I've learned from red cedar personally, but it's been a really incredible privilege of mine to get to study and learn about red cedar, and it not only just because of the incredible value of this tree, but personally I've learned a lot about how to build relationships and navigate this space between working on a culturally important species and having conversations with communities and building relationships around this issue. And so on another day, please feel free to ask me about what I've learned from red cedar personally and how this has really changed the way that I approach relationships. And I wish that other people and early career researchers especially, but other people in urban communities would have that opportunity to learn from red cedar like I have. If you're interested in knowing where red cedar are on the urban environments, it's easy to say that it's everywhere. If we look at the data from the street tree data sets in Seattle alone, so this is available through the Seattle Open Data, you can get the trees and you can filter it to red cedar, but there's more than 1,600 red cedar trees in Seattle alone, and that's an enormous part of our urban forests. We know red cedar is really important and it's really abundant in Seattle. You can also look at data from iNaturalist to determine where red cedar is. And so in this case, we searched red cedar through this Explorer, and you look, in your location of this this viewpoint, there's more than 2,000 trees shared here. We know that trees in the urban environment are both healthy and unhealthy, and this leads us to other questions about what is going to happen to these unhealthy or these dying red cedar. Is there ways that we can use it? Can we get these resources into the hands of people that would like them or need them? But unfortunately, I think most often people are unaware of red cedar as a cultural resource, and maybe there's a lot of opportunity to kind of bridge that disconnect, or to work with individuals in urban areas to understand that yes, there might be someone who wants that cultural resource if your tree is unhealthy and you're removing it, or if it's healthy and you have a lot or you're willing to share. There may be a lot of opportunity there. And another data set is the iNaturalist project that I mentioned previously, where we have data on where trees are healthy and unhealthy. And all of these data are shared by communities, but it's really neat when you break down and you look at where are the trees in the urban environments. And so I welcome you to explore that. Reach out to me if you're interested in learning more about that data or using it. But here's some examples of photos of red cedar from the urban environment. There are many. It's in a lot of different types of environments, different types of access, if you will. It'd be really neat to see partnerships or cooperatives form with some of these urban landscapes or these urban communities, like this golf course, for example. What are they going to do with this western red cedar that's dying? One urban environment that I wanted to highlight is Green River College. They've done a really incredible job, I think, providing access to cultural resources in their forests, which is kind of in the middle of an urban environment. So Green River College is there in Auburn. They have a lot of red cedar, and they've done a really great job sharing that red cedar with Indigenous communities. So I just wanted to highlight them as a really good example of an urban forest that's providing access to cultural resources. And this is Gene McCall, professor of natural resources in Green River College, and this is Cedar Hall. And just behind Cedar Hall, there's a number of unhealthy red cedar, and they're currently thinking about how they can use this red cedar to raise awareness about the cultural importance and provide resources, and also maintain red cedar for the ecological purposes or habitat. So they're thinking about carving, or they're working with Indigenous communities to carve some of these standing dying trees. And it's another good example of a possible approach. Every dead cedar could be a symbol in a way. Looking forward, there's some great opportunity to explore how the dieback of red cedar can be used as a tool for communicating the effects of climate change on cultural resources. And this is a poster we presented at the Rising Voices workshop in 2021. We also have some neat work where we planted red cedar in urban environments, Swan Creek, Black River riparian area, and Discovery Park, where we're interested in studying whether Oregon populations are better adapted to future climates than Washington. We're also really interested in trying to identify ways that we can continue to raise awareness of cultural resources in our urban environments. And I welcome you to reach out to me if you have other ideas. We have created this iNaturalist project to document where culturally modified trees are in hopes that it will help raise awareness of red cedar as a cultural resource. And then we're also interested in exploring with you, how red cedars can really help, or how the dieback of red cedar can really help us start conversations about access to that cultural resource. Clearly, hazard trees or dead trees in areas that are pose a risk need to be removed, and there's a lot of opportunity there to connect cities or communities with other communities that want that resource. And so I really welcome you to contact me. I encourage you to reach out to me. I know that I'm gone. I had a limited amount of time to share with you, but I wish that I could be there in person, but I'm should be having fun in the Tamanmas Forest with the Muckleshoot Tamanmas Forest Community Day. So I bid you farewell, and please feel free to email me if you have any questions or opportunities to collaborate. I would love to learn from you. Thanks.